Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so welcome again to the April Lower Columbia Nature Network. I am Jane Tesner-Kleiner, the project manager, and Michelle Stano, our communications manager. We're excited to have you all here today as we talk about climate change and action plans. And this will be an interactive session. So we have another Padlet set up that we hope you will all contribute to. But I'm going to turn the floor and the screen over to Rebecca Small from the city of Vancouver. Rebecca, you want to introduce yourself and we'll get going.
Sure. Thank you, Jane. And thank you everyone for making a little bit of time for me to talk with you today. I'm really excited to hear from you more than anything. So I'll try to keep my presentation succinct so that we can have a little bit more time for conversation and discussion at the end. As Jane said, my name is Rebecca Small. I'm a senior policy analyst with the city of Vancouver. And right now I'm tasked with leading the development of the city's first climate action plan. Prior to working in city government, I was a professional scientist. My background is in geology and biology, and my very first, well, unpaid, but my first summer job was teaching a nature camp at Secor Metro Park in Toledo, Ohio for 2 sessions of middle school kids. And so I think I'm a little bit jealous of most of the people in this group because I know how fun and engaging and rewarding that work can be. All right, so moment of truth. Let's see if I've learned anything over the last 2 years on how to share my presentation screen. All right. Give me a shout. Good. Okay. Yep. All right. So as I mentioned, we are working on the city's first climate action plan. This started a couple of years ago, back in 2019, such an innocent time, when the city realized that it had been over 10 years since we had last conducted an inventory of the city's greenhouse gas emissions. And so they instructed staff to go and update our last inventory. And in doing that work, I think the realization really sunk in that, it was time to have a formal plan to lay out our climate action goals and to lay out strategies to get there. There are a couple of elements of the overall plan. Today, I'm just going to talk about the mitigation element. We're going to be working on an climate adaptation plan and an infrastructure resilience plan in the coming years. But right now, we are deep in the mitigation, and that is the effort we'd like to focus on right now. So, right about the time when we were having discussions about the results of our greenhouse gas inventory, the city of Vancouver experienced its first 115-degree day. And that really, really made an impression on, I think, everyone in our city, but especially our councilors. And so when they were asked if they would like to set some specific greenhouse gas reduction targets, we presented them with a, kind of 3 choices, like a leading edge option, kind of basic standard option, and then, kind of like the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change recommended pathway. We presented these 3 options, expecting council to direct us to pursue the middle option. And they pleasantly surprised everyone by directing us to take the most aggressive target that we had presented. So our goals for this climate action plan are to reduce our municipal, like our city operation greenhouse gas production by 80% from our base year, 2007, by 2025. By 2030, we are aiming to achieve an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by the entire Vancouver community. And by 2040, our goal is to be carbon neutral, both in city operations and for the Vancouver community as a whole. I know this is an extremely ambitious target. Most most cities, city of Vancouver, city of Portland, Tacoma, every major city on the West Coast, and I think throughout the country, has a target of 2050 for carbon neutral. So this is a very ambitious effort, and I think we're all still trying to wrap our heads around how aggressive that requires us to be and how to act. So when we talk about greenhouse gas emissions in the city of Vancouver, what are we talking about? Where are those coming from? We have a pretty sizable chunk of our overall emissions that come from people using air transportation or airplane travel. So PDX airport, which is technically outside of the city, but Vancouver residents are taking trips. And that is, of course, a very big generator of greenhouse gas emissions. And then the two biggest ones that we really have the ability to directly address in our community through local city government action is transportation and buildings and energy. So that's the emissions generated by us driving to and fro, by freight moving through our community, by delivery fleets making, delivering all of our packages every day. And then the energy that we use, the electricity and natural gas that we're using to heat our homes and cook and power industrial processes. So those are kind of the big elements that we're going to be working on addressing through this plan. With a pretty far-reaching survey and a lot of work with a climate action group, a climate roundtable group, the city came up with a kind of overarching set of strategies that we would use to try to address our goals. And we are pretty far along in the process of writing the first part of this plan right now. We've been through, I think we started this effort back in 2019. We are at the point now where we have generated a list of the most impactful actions that we could take to cut emissions. We are vetting them with the community to try to make sure that our actions are feasible, that they are supported by the community, that we will be able to implement them equitably so that the benefits and burdens of climate action will not be disproportionately borne by frontline communities or any other population within our city. And we're also trying to find, what are people most excited about? Where do we have the greatest community enthusiasm? It's so much easier to get moving on actions that have broad community support. So we really want to know what's resonating with people, because it's just going to, it just adds so much momentum to those actions. We know that if we put resources into those early on, they're going to reap really big benefits for us down the line. So for full honesty, full disclosure, the sum total of all of the actions that we have in our list today are not sufficient to get us to our goal. We do not have the technology or legal authority to do all of the things that would be needed to eliminate all greenhouse gas production by 2050. The way that we are approaching this climate action plan is most city plans, most government plans, you write the plan once, council adopts or approves it, and it is, the document is kind of set in stone from there. You work from that plan until you've completed it. With the climate action plan, we are adopting this as a living document, something that we're going to revisit every 4 years. We're committing to redoing our greenhouse gas inventory every 4 years and reassessing all of our actions to see what is being effective, where are we not making enough progress, and have we learned anything in the last 4 years that we can add to this plan to try to make more progress to it. Just another way of looking at our goals. Right now, with the actions that we currently have, we can get to about 80% of our interim target in 2030 and to about 84% of our overarching goal by 2040. So when we were writing this, we're putting together this list of actions that we're going to undertake to try to cut greenhouse gas emissions. We're looking for the actions that are going to have the biggest bang for our buck. And that, transportation and building, heating, and cooling are our biggest sources of emissions, and therefore our biggest opportunity areas to, reduce emissions and be more efficient and switch to cleaner fuel sources. But I think the, kind of the exciting part of this, this whole plan for us as scientists and planners and for the community at large is that cutting emissions isn't our only approach to climate action. It's hard to, it can be hard to get excited about building energy efficiency codes and insulation standards, but I think that everyone can get excited about the idea of increasing the tree canopy in our city or preserving and expanding natural habitats throughout our city. And as I'm sure this group knows very well, this is an outstanding strategy for capturing carbon that we produce and sequestering it. And so a natural systems approach to our climate action plan is a very effective part of our strategy. And part that I would like to focus most of our discussion on today. Just as a quick run through for folks that are interested, our building and energy strategies focus mostly on improving the efficiency of the buildings that we have, and then making the switch to the lowest carbon fuel sources that are available to us to heat, cool, and cook in our buildings, in our existing buildings. For transportation, we naturally want to make sure that our city is designed in a way that we can comfortably, safely encourage people to walk, bike, and take transit to their destinations. And we also want to try to make the transition over to electric vehicles as quickly as possible. For land use, do I have any land use nerds in the group? Our main approach there is to use the land that we have in the city efficiently. We want to grow upward, not outward. We want to concentrate housing and commercial activities in neighborhoods where we have good transit or where we could provide better transit. We want to make sure that the neighborhoods that we do have a strong, connected sidewalk network, and that our cities are accessible for people with disabilities, and that we have a complete and safe bike network throughout the city. And then last but not least, natural systems. Our main, kind of the overarching strategy for our natural systems segment is to preserve and expand all of the green spaces that we already have, all of those areas that are actively, doing the hard work of carbon storage for us already. Like, how can we make sure that we're protecting these? How can we make sure we're enhancing them and making sure that we're planting as we are increasing our green spaces? We have to think ahead to what the climate is going to be like 30, 40, 50 years from now and make sure that we're planting accordingly. And then perhaps our biggest challenge is to encourage private property owners to plant trees, garden with natives, and use better soil management practices. So we just kind of talked through this, but some of the other actions, not everything in the plan has a huge carbon reduction benefit, but still really important to the community. We hear loud and clear that people feel very strongly about increasing our access to community gardens and being able to support local agriculture, that people would like to have incentives for things like lawn removal, and a citywide compost program can make it easier for people to use natural approaches to gardening on their own properties. And then, of course, increasing our tree canopy, depaving parts of the city that are overpaved is an important approach to adaptation. It helps us mitigate our urban heat islands. When we have extremely hot days, places that have better shade coverage are going to suffer less. And we want to make sure all areas of the city are going to have access to these green cooling spaces. So these all sound like great things. Where are the challenges? Why are these not, happening right away? Why would this be hard to do? Well, of course, we have our city is growing extremely quickly. There's development pressure. We need to, if we're trying to protect mature trees that we already have, how can we make sure that we can still accommodate new growth in our community without destroying the natural systems that are going to make those communities livable in the future? Sorry about that. The building more densely is key to making our city more efficient, making it easier for people to bike and walk and take transit to things that they want. But when we build close together, we also have the kind of unintended consequence of reducing the amount of space that we have to make big green spaces. So how do we make sure that we're still incorporating space for nature in our neighborhoods? And then last but not least, our biggest challenge is probably just that most of the land in the city is not at all under the city's control. Nearly 3/4 of the available land in the city is privately owned. And as we all know, there's just kind of long-standing traditions in the American psyche as to, what we do with private property if we have it. And that little Japanese maple up there by the window is not going to get us too much closer to our overall city climate goals. So I think everyone recognizes that in order to make it possible, in order to encourage people to use the land that they have in ways that will help us get closer to those greenhouse gas reduction goals, we need to talk to people. We need to educate and encourage people to make different choices with how they use the land that is available to them. So that education and engagement piece is so important to our climate action plan's overall success. We'll be adopting a resolution in council on May 16th that will directly focus the city's attention on engaging young people in, in nature education and helping to shape and inform the implementation of this climate action plan. So, it's very built into this plan that we're going to be needing to have a lot of conversations with our community, especially young people. And, our values around this are that we want to make sure this isn't like a one and done conversation. We want to use this opportunity to develop young climate leaders and, make sure that people that are going to be that experience the brunt of climate change get to be an active part of the solutions, both developing them and making them happen. So as we're, kind of thinking, how in the world is the city going to talk to every resident, to every young person in the city and get people excited about all of this work that we have to do, a lot of it, which is really fun and rewarding and will teach us so much about our ecosystems and our habitats and the things that make our home special. And we realized that with the advice of a lot of our department staff in forestry and in parks and the folks at the Watershed Resource Center, that we have so many organizations that already do this work. If we thought, what would be the most helpful group of folks who could possibly, help the city take this work further, it would be the people who have been doing this work for literally decades. So pretty much everyone in this room is a topical expert in how to implement a very important segment of the city's climate action plan. Oh, sorry. And let's see, I will just pause there because I think we had, on that note, we had a couple of questions that we were hoping we could direct towards the folks in this room to, kind of figure out like what would be some of the best ways that the city could partner with you in ways that we already do, that we haven't approached before. What are going to be the best ways that we can work with you to really make this climate action plan an effective, living, functional, North Star for our community instead of just a plan that sits on the shelf. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jane. I think you had the board set up with a few questions.
I did. Thank you so much, Rebecca. That was a really great overview. And thank you, Michelle, for sharing that. So one more link in the chat box for you all, and it looks like this right here. And this is now going to be an open discussion, so we would love for you to unmute and chat at will here. But we have several questions that we just wanted to walk through first, including question number one: does the organization that you work with now have a climate action strategy? And if for this Padlet, the way to add is just right underneath the question. Just click on that little box right there. Thank you, Michelle. To open up a box and type in the name of your organization, and then underneath maybe add a few comments or even a link if your organization has a web page that we can use as a reference. That would be great. The Lower Columbia Nature Network isn't really an organization, so we don't have a climate strategy yet as an organization. But Rebecca, in part of your research for the city, did you research what other organizations in the region have climate action plans?
Yes, we did take a look at a lot of the kind of like our neighboring suburbs and cities to see what kind of actions they were proposing in their calendars, in their city plans. But as far as local organizations, we've looked at kind of the, some of our public school systems and our transit agencies, but we haven't gotten to engage in this conversation with our local environmental experts and more of our young person, youth focused organizations. So we'd love to hear more about what people specifically in this group are thinking about.
Thank you. And I know when both Vancouver and Evergreen bond programs started, they had community visioning sessions that include sustainability. So I don't think either the school districts per se have a climate action plan, but the sustainability of their buildings and the new projects in the future were to include sustainable, therefore climate friendly principles in the design of all their new buildings. So that would be another one I'll add in there. And so it looks like there aren't many action plans out there. The Watershed Alliance is saying that they are planning on one in the future. So that would be really good to know. So once again, we'll leave this Padlet open. So if you take the link back to your organization, and if you want to add your information later, that would be really great to kind of know where we're at. And then we'll share the results of the Padlet with folks when we send the newsletter out. So we'll make sure that everybody has that information. So if you don't have an action plan, but most of your organizations who are on the call today do address climate action with the work that you do, and I'll highlight Jessica, who did an amazing job with Jesse planting, what do we plant, like 20 trees out at Pioneer Elementary yesterday? It was fantastic. So go ahead and click on the number 2 link there and list some things that your organization is doing to address climate action. And I'm so glad Rebecca mentioned one of the key pieces that you all do, looking through the groups who are here today, is education and outreach, that messaging about why responsible nature activities matter, and especially some of the connections that you make with youth through stewardship, taking kids out who may not have exposure to nature. I thought I saw Will's on the call today. So what are the things that you're all doing when you go out to connect our community to nature and help them understand the value of the work that you're doing. And then I'll pick on Chuck because he turned his camera on, and providing accessible trails and access to the forest is huge, right? If people can't get out to the spaces around them, that's a really important piece. Chuck, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Especially for our seniors and older people who are really wanting to get out there and explore some of these areas and everything, especially within the city limits and everything. So absolutely, accessibility has to be right at the top of all of this, for sure. So thank you.
Thank you. And then I'll just highlight, Chuck is a wealth of information. If your organization has any questions about accessibility and getting people out to nature, Chuck is our resource. And a lot of the information that we added to our webpage under the community resources was from the panel that we had recently. We also have urban forestry is planting trees across the community. Thank you for that, Jess. Let's see, my thing moved. Clark County Green Schools, doing environmental education outreach with kids on waste reduction, recycling, composting, green schoolyards, etc. The Watershed Alliance, of course, is running the amazing backyard habitat program, helping local citizens rethink their properties. From the picture that Rebecca shared with us with the turf and the little baby Japanese maple, which is nice, but rethinking what our yards could look like and still have beauty with benefit wrapped into it. So that's a really great program that's very successful in the community. Okay. Once again, keep adding to those two, but let's get to the heart of the question here that I think, Rebecca, you might want to introduce this as to what does it look like for your organization to work with the city on climate action? And Rebecca, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. The city already has relationships with a lot of the organizations that are in this room today and a lot of groups around the city. I think one thing that we've really realized through our greenhouse gas modeling work is that, you know, we kind of need to go bigger, go further. And a lot of this work simply isn't something that the city can't do all of these actions on our own. And so it is written in many places in our plan to work with local experts, work with community-based organizations that do the work, know the neighborhoods, know the people. But working with is a pretty open-ended and unspecific phrase. You know, if the city is already working with your organization in some way, what would be a way that that we could expand the work that you're already doing? And if we don't, if we don't do any work together, if we don't have a relationship with your organization right now, what would a productive relationship with the city look like to you? The city has, the ability to help promote events through its media channels. It has wonderful people on staff in our parks and in our water resources department. You can email me anytime, but we have topical experts. We have the ability to, hopefully raise money in the community for climate action, and, try to support organizations that are doing the work that we know needs to be done. So to you, what would be a meaningful way that the city could support you in your work?
And I know we're asking big topics here, so this might require a little think time and come back to us with information, but.
And I think people should feel free to share out as well. I mean, it's good to have it recorded in the Padlet, but it's also nice to have a discussion. So if you'd like to just share thoughts, that's great too.
And I'm going to offer that we also have the other questions up. Maybe you're thinking like our Watershed Alliance partners are adding to the other questions there too. Feel free to add to questions 4 and 5 as well, with other ideas that you have. And Rebecca, remind me, you're not the only staff person working on this for the city. Who else from the city is working on this work with you?
Well, I would say, honestly, most departments are working, have some element of climate work in their portfolio right now. Specifically on the climate action plan, it is myself and Erin Landy. And we hope to be increasing our staff, next year if we can secure some funding for it. But I think a lot of folks would probably be most familiar with our staff in forestry and parks, and maybe to some extent our solid waste department.
Rebecca, this is Suzanne over at the Water Center. And I just had a question for you. Given that I think the number was 74% of the land within the city is private property, I guess I'm just thinking of, are there ways that we can engage with our community partners, maybe like the Watershed Alliance, to work not just on city property, but also could there be support and funding for them to work with private property owners to depave or restore habitat, plant trees, plant natives, things like that?
Yes. I'm sorry to have not been more specific. That I think is our biggest challenge and what we are most looking for support from our community-based organizations to do. The stuff that's on city property, we have a lot of autonomy and control over that, but it really is doing that one-on-one engagement and education with private property owners to try to encourage people to plant native trees, lawn a lawn and and plant drought tolerant natives. So that connection with kind of the private property owners of the city is really our biggest area of opportunity, and also the one that we need the most help with if we're going to move the dial. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just wondering, do you foresee any funding sources down the line that could help the community partners achieve those goals?
That is something that we have included in the plan, is the need for a dedicated fund for climate and sustainability actions. So, it's in our climate priority resolution. So we are not being shy with council that this is a necessity, and that we won't be able to do any of this work without it. So I don't think we have all of the hows answered yet, but we know that it is critical to making progress on anything. So not all of the questions answered yet, but yes.
Great, thank you.
I can chime in. I'm from the Watershed Alliance. I'm Shane. As far as working with private properties, we're already funded by the city of Vancouver to do work on private properties. The Backyard Habitat Program is partially funded by the city. And right now we're open to people coming into the wait list right now. So if you need information about that, we're taking more people for that. And we'd love to have any of you that have that information. And if you need flyers or brochures or just the information to point people to, as far as the Backyard Habitat Certification Program, email me. It's shane@thewatershedalliance.org. And also the Project Restore thing is another one where we're actually doing work on people's properties, where backyard habitat is more of a resources thing. That's also funded by the city, and we're taking that over, but we're not at the point where we're taking new people yet. We're kind of dealing with a backlog at the moment, but eventually that would be a really good resource to expand and get people help when they can't all do it themselves.
That is wonderful feedback. I am taking notes. Thank you.
That's great, Shane. Thank you so much for that. And let's talk about messaging really quick, because most of your organizations who are on the call today have messaging about the value of protecting nature, enhancing nature, environmental stewardship. Talk to us specifically about the youth that you all work with, and what do you see are under number 4, what form would this take to have action? What ways do you see that you can wrap climate action messaging into the programs that you already do with youth? Or is there a gap and we need to create a new program or programs to connect with youth on this topic? What are you all doing with youth programming? I know you're all thinking. I added working with high school, excuse me, high school green teams and working with the CTE Career Tech Ed leadership to see if we can get more student voices actively working towards this as a project. If there was a forum where students could meet to talk about their climate action ideas. Michelle, you had mentioned there's a national movement that has a Seattle focus, and I'm forgetting their names, about the Youth Climate Action Group.
Is it CCLI? That's something I'll have to look at that.
Just thinking out loud, not to put you on the spot. But there are forums for students, and if we could bring some of that format here in Vancouver to help support people who are interested to have a place to go to share their ideas. And then also DPAVE, who's familiar with DPAVE? And I know they're doing a ton of work in Portland. If they've done any work here in Vancouver. Or is there another, like, is that a public works piece, Rebecca, that you think that public works could come in and help DPAVE roadways or properties, parking lots?
We are definitely going to be doing a pretty in-depth analysis of where we have the most severe urban heat islands in the city, and depaving and getting rid of extra unnecessary asphalt is going to be a huge part of that. So I think we could definitely expect some city support on those efforts. I've worked a little bit with DPAVE down in Portland, and I would say, like, well, I definitely would, I'll definitely try to make sure that the city is there to bring resources that are needed. I think some of the magic of DPAVE is the way that it brings regular people together to tear up a parking lot. It just makes you feel so superhuman and so powerful to be able to transform something like that. So I wouldn't want public works to take away too much of the fun.
Awesome. And thanks for that, Jessica. They've worked with the city years ago. I remember that. Working in the Rose Village IGA. Awesome. Well, I can think of several large parking lots, not to say the mall has opportunities for sure in that high heat island kind of central Vancouver area, but there are lots of other places, older parking lots that are just huge, like faith-based organizations, etc. Lots of room. Just reading through everybody's comments here. Okay. Well, this has been really helpful for us to understand, Rebecca, what's going on. Do you want to talk about the timeline really quick? Again, so folks know if they want to contact you, what your deadlines are. You have a slide that had the dates. If you want to share that again,
Yeah,
feel free to do
absolutely.
so.
Okay. I think I lost my full screen. Yeah, so just for what's coming up with the plan right now, we are going to be presenting the draft list of actions that we've developed with our wide-ranging community roundtable and city staff and experts, kind of best practices experts and other cities plans. We're going to be presenting this draft list to council on May 16th, so coming right up, along with the climate priority declaration that officially sets our climate goals in city, city ordinance, and lays out some of the principles that will prioritize while we go forward and do this work. On June 6th, we'll try, hopefully, if council approves, we will adopt that climate resolution. And then August 8th is when we will be presenting the, kind of the final plan or draft final plan to the city and the public. We'll walk through all of the climate actions on that list and the implementation, what we expect the costs for some of these actions to be. And there will be a formal public hearing on the 15th of August to hear from, hear official testimony from the public and to hopefully adopt the plan. I don't want to take up too much time with testimony or anything. I think if you're interested in testifying or providing comments to the city, give me a call or an email and I will talk you through it. So we don't have to spend too much time, going through web links during this presentation. But in a nutshell, you can always find all of the materials for any of these council workshops or hearings on the city's website. We also have a website on the Be Heard Vancouver page. If you go down and find the little girl planting a flower down there in the corner, that is where we're posting all of the climate specific news and updates for this plan. You can submit written testimony, you can submit verbal testimony. We want to hear it all. And you can always email me directly, email or call me directly. So. And you can do that anytime. There's no timeline on that. So that.
Rebecca, I put that CMO@cityofvancouver.us. Should they use that email or your specific?
Yeah, that's the email address if you specifically want to send written testimony to city council. So that'll go to all of the councilors and usually ends up getting forwarded back to Aaron Landsey and I as relevant staff people. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're coming up on the top of the hour. Rebecca, thank you so much for your presentation today and informing us of what's going on, and I think giving us all a lot to think about what we can all do to link the work that we're all doing in our day-to-day work, as well as in our neighborhoods and communities, and how we can hopefully contribute to the success of the city reaching that goal. It's a really important goal. So any other questions for Rebecca today? Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's great to see you. I'm going to open the floor to any other shout outs or updates that you have. I'm going to quickly look through the event calendar one more time. I saw people were adding more things to the event calendar all the way out until August, September, October, December even. Fantastic. There's lots of great activities coming up. Feel free to share amongst yourselves, cross-connect on the activities and events coming up as we hopefully come out of COVID and can do more work. I'd like to post a question to you all on how you're all feeling about an in-person meeting at some point. Is that a thumbs up, thumbs down? No way. You all like your little box on the screen? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. There's one thumbs up. Awesome. Cool. It'd be nice to plan for something, give something to look forward to, and try to make it centrally located. I know we have some more community spaces that are opening up out of the bond program. The Evergreen, right there by Furstenberg, has a new community space in their new building. So, or if your organization would like to donate your community space that we could all meet, in maybe a late afternoon meeting or something, that would be great too. But we'll put that on our radar to maybe try to get us all together in person. Hugs allowed. I just saw Misha and Josie, who couldn't be with us today because they're so busy planning for Staggered Wall, but I saw them at a training this weekend, and Jared too. And just like, yay, I see you in person. You're real. It was really exciting. Okay. And just to put a plug out to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, as you know, or if we haven't said it lately, we are grateful to the Fish and Wildlife Service for supporting the Lower Columbia Nature Network and the funding. We're in year 1 of 5 years of funding to support the Nature Network for Michelle and I to do this work, and we are grateful to them. If you want to show love back to them, show up May 7th out at Staggered Wall for the new trails and hikes, and the view. It's a little hike up to the dike, not too far, but it is beautiful. And the scenery is amazing. And the success story of Gibbons Creek with the lamprey is astounding. And the fact that salmon are already running up Gibbons Creek, full-size salmon are already running up there, it's pretty astounding. So if you have a chance to go check them out, high five them for a job well done, and you get to see them in person. It should be a really amazing event on May 7th. And then the site is technically open May 1st. So if you want to go out and preview the site, feel free to go out anytime after May 1st. The parking lot's different. So if you're looking for the old parking lot, the new parking lot's before you get to Gibbons Creek. So make sure you look for that when you head out east. Okay. Michelle, what did we miss? Did I miss anything? I forgot to go back to our agenda.
No, I think we got it all. Yeah, just thank you everybody for participating. And I guess the May meeting, it'll be more sharing updates and more kind of collaborative. I know we've done several panels and speakers, but kind of the core and heart of who we are too is sharing what we're doing and how we can help each other. So that will be the feature or the focus of our May meeting.
Yeah. And if we haven't mentioned recently, Michelle and I were accepted into the National League of Cities program for cities connecting children to nature. And there's a conference in Atlanta early May that I'll be going to on behalf of our organization to meet with all the cohort groups. And they are giving us technical assistance. They are planning to come to Vancouver. So one of the things I want to talk about in May is if we bring them to Vancouver to connect our children to nature, how do we want to, what would that look like? Do we want to do a community forum? Do we want to have an experts panel? So we'll be talking about that, and I'll be sharing information after our conference with, I'm sure I'll be overloaded with ideas because there's usually lots of energy at those meetings. But that will be we'll be talking about that in May because we get 2 visits from our specialists from the National League of Cities. One before October this year and then another one next year. So we get to use them for their expertise, and we would love for you all to meet them. It's an amazing group of folks who are helping us move this work forward. So we'll be talking in May about it. And I'll be getting on a plane, which I haven't done in forever. I'm actually a little nervous about it.
Also, I put the link to the Staggered Wall opening on May 7th in the chat. So it's an Eventbrite link. You just need to register. It's a free event.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And I see Katie's on the call. Katie, thank you for all you do. I don't know if you all know, but Katie's leaving the Intertwine to finish her schoolwork. Congratulations on that. And thank you for all that you've done for the Intertwine. It's been great working with you.
Thank you so much.
I miss you. You're so welcome.
I know. Thank you. I might take you up on that. We will have a new co-director joining us. And so I'll introduce them when we have them on board, but I posted in the Padlet if you all have anyone interested. You don't need to have director level experience. And And so we're hoping to get a lot of amazing folks interested. So if you're interested or you know anyone, please share it. And I apologize, I was driving, but I have lots to add to that Padlet. So Rebecca, I will be emailing and lots to add. So thank you so much for convening this.
Great, thank you. And good luck on the rest of your schoolwork. I hope it goes very well for you. That's a really big, not hurdle, that's the wrong word, a really great accomplishment to achieve in your life. So congratulations on wrapping that up. That's exciting.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I am going to give a shout out to Jessica George and her whole team yesterday for Pioneer Elementary. Just a few raindrops. You forecasted no rain and the plant team went so well. If you ever talk about climate strategy, you get 30 people together to plant trees. Oh my gosh, it goes so fast because Jessica's team makes it so easy to do. So thank you to Jessica and her team yesterday out at Pioneer. You're a Pioneer alum, Shane? Awesome.
Shane, that is so awesome. When we got out to the school yesterday, I got out of the truck and we had trees in it. So the kids knew what they were there for. And this one kid standing on the play equipment said, "Welcome to Pioneer." It was so wonderful. It set the tone for the day.
That's awesome. Shane, you're an alumni of Pioneer? You're a Pioneer Cub?
Yeah, it was a while ago, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, the exciting thing is they're not out back against the city property. They're right up there by the school, around shade around the playground. Oh my gosh, it's such a huge, huge thing. It's going to take a little while to go, but thank you for that. Okay, anything else? What else are we going to celebrate? Who else has a good story to share? Can't let you all go without sharing some good stories.
The Americorps, a few of the Americorps members with the city of Vancouver, like myself, Adela from Urban Forestry, and then Jade from Urban Forestry and volunteers. We planned our first event for Earth Day and it was super successful. We planted over 400 plants at Burnbridge Creek and had about 30 volunteers. And yeah, and then Ashley did an educational nature walk as well. And it was just like, it was a really awesome event and we were really happy with ourselves and the community. And it was just like an all around success.
Awesome. And on the event calendar, so Ashley's leading the Burnbridge Creek walk?
Yes.
Man, she knows her birds. Awesome.
Yeah.
Go into that one. Cool. What else? Any other good stories to share?
I have a good one. La Center High School was awarded the U.S. Department of Education's Green Ribbon Award, as well as the OSPI. But yeah, pretty big honor for them.
La Center, that's Rebecca, isn't it? Yay! She's been working so hard. If you haven't been up to the La Center schools to see all the amazing naturescaping that Rebecca's put in over the years, oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Awesome. I'm going to announce one other success for Kelsey shared with us. If you're not familiar with the backpack program, the Check Out Washington backpack program, Kelsey, remind me, you have 2 packs at every school or at every library, I'm sorry. And your wait list is usually how long for each of those packs? Like 15 to 20 people?
Yeah, I was gonna say right now we're about 15 to 20 because it's starting to ramp up for the, I would say nicer weather, but it's not great where I am. But yeah, we get up to about 30 to 40 people waiting in the summer, but they go pretty quick. So yeah, we've got about 25 to 30 backpacks. We're hoping to get a few more this summer. So yeah.
That's wonderful. Huge. And if you didn't read the Columbian, if you don't get the Columbian newspaper today, on the front section of the B was a great article on a mom who's writing a series of books, Great Hikes for Little Feet. So check out the Columbian either online or grab a paper and read the article about more resources to encourage kids to get outside and hike. And she has lots of great tips. So we might try to hook up with her as a future speaker at one of our meetings. Okay. Any other good stories? You're all doing such great, amazing work. Suzanne, you've got students coming into the Water Center again?
Yeah, we have school field trips happening. We started back in March and we have, up to, 2 to 3 to 4 programs a week. So that goes through May, and it's been great. Sierra has been doing an awesome job helping me out with that. And it's really great to have students back here at the Water Center. It's good energy.
And who's in your fish tank these days? I know you used to have sturgeon a long time ago.
Yeah, our big fish tank is still empty.
Oh, okay.
That's still a work in progress.
Okay.
But we do have our salmon fry on display right now.
Yay. That'll get
Oh, and I just had a question for Kelsey. Kelsey, what do you have in your backpacks?
That's a great question. Our backpacks have gone through a really big shift from what they were years ago, but right now, currently, it's a partnership with the state parks and the state library. So it's a backpack, a Discover Pass, that's a library specific one. So when they check it out, they can use that to access any of the parks. There's 3 different pocket nature guides. So I think one for birds, one for plants, and one for wildlife, and then some binoculars. And so when they check it out, they get to use all those. And yeah, we've had some really great feedback on that. People love it.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like a really great program. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that started over 10 years ago with the Parks Foundation. And then it moved to the City of Vancouver's Park and Rec program, and then with the Forest Service. And so it's bounced around, but I think it landed in the perfect spot. Awesome. Okay. Any other shout outs? Any things to celebrate? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all for your time today. It's great to see you all. And once again, I'm so appreciative of all the amazing work that you do. You inspire me every time we get together. I am so grateful to know you all. And thank you so much for your time today. We'll hang on the call if you have any other questions, or if you want to chat with somebody offline, we'll make a breakout room and send you into a breakout room if you want to chat with somebody specifically about something. But we are grateful for your time and for all that you do. So thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you in May. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I'll follow up with you by email after the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Keep well.
Hey, baby. Hey, Jane.
Yeah, man.
I really want to thank you for your little thing you put out on, I think it was on, I can't remember where I saw it, but on spraying dandelions.
Mm-hmm.
This year, my yard is, for some reason, got uncontrollably filled with dandelions and everything. So boy, I was getting ready to really get with it. And then I read that, and so I stopped and I went out there and I picked all of the dandelion flowers.
Then you had a good salad, right?
Just because of you.
Oh. And I